pain is neither unendurable nor everlasting if you keep its limits in mind and do not add to it through your own imagination, says Marcus Aurelius. Do you know Marcus Aurelius, the last good emperor, was known for his physical frailty due to chronic health problems, but he was also known for his exceptional resilience. Historian Cassius Dio wrote, "To be sure, he could not display many feats of physical prowess, yet he had developed his body from a very weak one to one capable of the greatest endurance." How do we explain this seeming paradox? How did a man so weak and sickly become known for toughness and endurance? Perhaps the answer lies in his attitude toward pain and illness, and the Stoic techniques Marcus used to cope with them. Marcus Aurelius wrote in the Meditations, he thanks the gods that his body held out for such a long time under such physical distress. He survived the 2 Marcomannic Wars and the Antonine Plague, nearly making it to the age of 60 at a time when the odds of doing so were poor. Indeed, he suffered from recurring health problems, yet he managed to live longer than most of his contemporaries. Thus, it's no surprise that in his writings, he frequently revealed evidence of his psychological struggle to cope with physical problems. Since his early days, Marcus had been preparing himself to face this inner battle for most of his life. Over the years, Marcus had gradually learned to endure pain and illness by utilizing the psychological strategies of ancient Stoicism. During the war, while writing the Meditations, Marcus reflected on these techniques as part of his ongoing practice. And today in this video, we will see these notes that reflect a state of mind attained from rigorous Stoic training. In other words, Marcus Aurelius' attitude toward pain and illness didn't come naturally to him. He had to learn it. When it came to coping with pain and illness, the philosophical school of Epicurus believed that the goal of life was pleasure. They described pleasure, though, in a notoriously paradoxical manner, as consisting mainly of a state of freedom from pain and suffering. Minimizing the emotional distress caused by pain and illness was therefore extremely important to them. Epicurus wrote in one of his letters that, "When I was ill, my conversation was not devoted to the sufferings of my body, nor did I chatter about such matters to those who visited me. But I continued to discuss the main elements of natural philosophy as before." Epicurus didn't complain or dwell on his symptoms. In fact, he used his illness as an opportunity to converse in a dispassionate manner about how the mind can remain contented while the body suffers terrible pain and discomfort. He simply carried on doing what he loved, discussing philosophy with his friends. According to Epicurus's Principal Doctrines, which contains advice for coping with pain, says, we should remind ourselves that pain is always bearable because it is either acute or chronic, but never both. He added, "A little pain is contemptible and a great one is not lasting. Therefore, you can learn to cope by telling yourself that the pain won't last long, if it's severe, or that you're capable of enduring much worse if the pain is chronic." People often object to this by saying that their pain is both chronic and severe. In the Meditations, Marcus paraphrased the same quote from Epicurus and wrote, "On pain, if it is unbearable, it carries us off. If it persists, it can be endured." Needless to say, the point is that chronic pain beyond our ability to endure would have killed us. So the fact we're still standing proves that we're capable of enduring much worse. Marcus Aurelius tells, "We have to practice to keep looking at things this way, though, just as we must practice to overcome unhealthy habits and cravings. According to Stoicism, when people are really struggling, they focus on their inability to cope and the feeling that the problem is spiraling out of control. Like, I just can't bear this any longer. This is a form of catastrophizing, focusing too much on the worst-case scenario and feeling overwhelmed. However, Epicurus meant that by focusing instead on the limits of your pain, whether in terms of duration or severity, you can develop a mindset that's more oriented toward coping and less overwhelmed by worry or negative emotions about your condition. Marcus also found it helpful to think of his pain as confined to a particular part of the body rather than allowing himself to become consumed by imagining it as more pervasive. Pain wants to dominate your mind and become the whole story. However, people who handle pain well usually view it objectively as something more limited in nature, which makes it easier for them to see themselves coping with it in various ways. Marcus explained that pain is tolerable if we remember that our attitude toward it is what really determines how upset we become. It's not our pains or illnesses that upset us, but our judgments about them. This is one of the main therapeutic tools of Stoic pain management. When faced with any of these discomforts, Marcus would simply warn himself, "You are giving way to pain." According to Stoic philosopher, pain, discomfort, fatigue, they're all just unpleasant sensations. Epictetus says, "Everyday tolerance of minor physical discomforts can help us build long-lasting psychological resilience. One can learn to build up resistance to a bigger problem by voluntarily exposing himself repeatedly to something similar, albeit in smaller doses or a milder form." Marcus described several different Stoic strategies for dealing with pain and illness in the Meditations. The most important thing he observed in those individuals who coped well was their ability to withdraw or separate their mind from bodily sensations. This Stoic technique, called cognitive distancing, which requires learning to withhold value judgments from unpleasant feelings, viewing them as morally indifferent, neither good nor bad in themselves, and ultimately harmless. Of course, this takes practice and an understanding of the underlying concepts. Also, remember that the fear of pain does more harm than pain itself. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe to our channel for more empowering content.